Hey folks, JSAT here. I'm going to talk to you about my gameplay settings. A couple preliminary notes. First of all, I'm doing this live, so if I forget anything, I'm going to put it in the notes below. Second, I'm not talking about my mod settings. I've done some videos about that. I'll do more in the future. I'll link that below as well. Third, what is this all about? Why focus on gameplay settings at all? Your gameplay settings, if you make them right, will give you the smoothest gameplay possible. It will give you the information you need when you need it, for the most part, and not excess, so you can focus on gameplay. They're a decided advantage. However, like anything else with user experience and user interface, there's a little bit of taste involved here, right? There's no one universal answer. So I'm going to show what I think things should be for me, right? Based off of my personal game experience, the other games I've played before, what I like, what works for me, and I'll try to explain why I think it works and what the settings do in general as it comes up, so you can use this information if you have slightly different tastes. But it's not going to count for everybody. Like if you like things to look good, and by look good that means to you like looks photorealistic or such, you're you're going to hate my settings, I'm imagining. Okay, let's just go straight through so I don't miss something. Sensitivity, completely up to you. Completely up to you. Um, it's all about your personal experience with gaming and such. I'd recommend that if you're having trouble tracking things, like if you have to 180 because there's something behind you and it's really a struggle, it's probably too low. And if you have to aim at something distant, you have to find yourself like really kind of constraining yourself to do it, it's probably too high. And you can look at other games and pros in other games and look at the kind of reasonable range of DPI to mouse sensitivity combinations. And from that, you can find how many centimeters or inches it takes to do a 360, and you can see if your numbers are at all in the range. So like 20, 24 centimeters per 360, for example, is kind of on the higher end, and people sometimes are like 8, 7 centimeters per 360 on the lower end, depending on if you aim with your whole arm or your wrist. We could do many videos on this. Guess what? There are many videos on this on the internet. So if you're more interested in your sensitivity and maximizing that, go look elsewhere. But experience matters more than anything unless you're way outside the range. So like if you're just moving your wrist a little bit and you're doing a full 360, that's probably too much. Moving on. Okay, double tap dodge. I don't like it. I've never played a game where that was a thing. It's not in my muscle memory. It's off. Some people, that's going to be good for you. Toggle crouch, same thing. I don't like it. Give on defend, don't like it. I hit block for other reasons. I have E, my use key for give. I don't need it. I've not been using the social wheel because it came about after I was done with pubs. There are many people who use it to good effect. I won't comment on it because I don't have enough experience, but you should definitely experiment with it if you're pubbing. Okay, next, visual effects. These are huge, and some of these options are brand new, so I'm just experimenting with them myself, so I don't have a decided answer, but some I have big ones. Head bobbing, off. And there's a mod for that too, but that's another video. The less random motion you have going on, that's all visual, the easier it will be to aim where you want to aim and keep situational awareness. So off, camera shake off, hate it. Player outline always on means you have x-ray vision for your teammates and you can see them through hordes. I know it makes the game look a lot worse if you're into photorealistic, but gameplay wise it's a huge advantage. Okay, here are the new options. Blood and gore, screen blood effects, enemy dismemberment, enemy ragdoll. Screen blood effects is the big one. Even if you like that kind of stuff, I'd recommend it off because sometimes the amount of blood on your screen just makes it hard to see. The other three, blood and gore, enemy dismemberment, enemy ragdoll, I have them all off right now. I'm experimenting with them to see if I like it. On the one hand, dismemberment and such gives you immediate visual information about, did you hit them in the head? Are they dead? Right? But you probably can tell with just ragdoll. And that, to me, the less thing that's going on the screen that's irrelevant to gameplay, the better. So I'm experimenting with off. Also, I stream and I'm a teacher, and sometimes my students watch. So the more PG I can make this, the less likely I'm going to get fired, huh? Okay, so interface. I don't really think I mess with this at all. I have overcharge opacity at 0, and I can't remember if I ever even experimented with that. Intro cinematic off is just going to save you some lifetime. I don't really think there's anything here for you. This is all about Twitch settings, which isn't relevant. Just a quick note on for most people, but a couple quick notes on Twitch. First, you can tweak this even more in your user settings. Just do a quick Google search for HyperTwitch if you want to know how to make it even faster. And second, you can do the Twitch settings, a thing you've probably seen where random stuff happens every 30 seconds or so, even if you're not streaming. You just put in any random streamer's name, right? And it's a pretty fun mode to play with your friends, and hopefully it gets updated. So just a quick note on that. Moving on. Video settings. Obviously, your native resolution should always be the resolution you use. FOV, I get this question all the time. I'm at 100. The higher your FOV, the more things have to be rendered, the lower your FPS, right? But the higher your FOV, the more you can see. Also, another quick note. This game uses what's called vertical FOV. Most games use horizontal FOV. So 100 in this game, for example, is like 128.6 or something. I can't remember. That's off the top of my head of a horizontal FOV. So when you used to play Quake or whatever, you used 120 FOV. If you use 120 FOV in this game, you're actually using way more than that. And you get what's called the fishbowl effect, where it's harder to tell how close you are to things. But you can adjust to it, right? So there's no right answer here. Just remember that the higher the FOV, the more disorienting it'll be to get used to it, but you probably can get used to it, right? The worse your frame rate's going to be, the higher your situational awareness. And one more thing, the higher your FOV, the smaller things are on your screen. It might hurt your aim, especially for distant targets. So those are all trade-offs that you have to consider for yourself. I found 100 to be a sweet spot. Some people play 80, some people play 120. Usually around 100 is the upper limit for most people. They can't really stand higher than that. Up to you. I don't like VSync. I never noticed screen tearing. And there's other things with VSync. You can look into it more if you want. I cap frame rates at 120. I have a 144 hertz monitor. I have 7700K overclocked, 1070 GTX. And I cannot consistently get 120 FPS. Nobody can. But I like it capped because there's no need to go higher than that. I don't know. This one's actually more important. What I was going to say about max capping frame rate is if you have 60 FPS. Let me put it like this. Let's say you have a 144 hertz monitor, and anytime there's anything going on, you get 60, 70, 80 FPS. But when you're just running through the map, you get 120 FPS, 140, 150 FPS. The game actually feels different a little bit based off of frame rate. And I don't think you want the game to feel hugely different when you're playing in the worst situation as when you're playing in the best situation, right? You want it to feel similar as you can in the worst situation, because the worst situation with the most stuff alive and the most stuff happening is the time wipes are going to happen. That's when you need to perform your best. So having the game feel really good and really smooth most of the time, but then feel totally different in the times you most need to play well, that's not setting yourself up, your muscle memory up for success. That's setting you up for failure. You're going to train yourself to have bad habits. So if you only can maintain 60 FPS or less on a horde, you should cap your frame rate at 60. Even if during just progression you can get 110. Stacking frames. So visually, they'll tell you it looks better if you have a couple stacking frames, meaning there's a couple frames already produced, so that if your frame, and then it keeps them in a queue, so that they show there's always a queue. So if you get a sudden drop in frames, right, there's something big happening all of a sudden, you don't suddenly have no frames to show and things look bad for a few seconds. Okay, but my thought on that is the higher you're stacking frames, the more input latency you will have, right? So I'd rather have visual latency than input latency. So I put this to lowest I can. Gamma's all a preference. Gamma's that thing that makes things look washed out and light. I came from Quake 3, where everybody played it washed out, so I like it washed out. That's completely preference. Graphic quality, custom. What's my overall philosophy? If it uses CPU, boo, get the heck out of here. If it ruins it, makes it harder to see, get out of here. If it makes it easier to see and doesn't hurt frames, come on. Vermintide is a CPU beast. It is a CPU beast. A 9900K overclocked could not max out this game, even with a 1070 GPU. So that's my philosophy. However, shutting off shadows makes the game look way worse. It looks very pretty with shadows and such. So you got to know what you're playing for. I know what I'm playing for. I'm playing for gameplay. That's all I care about. So I like high quality textures because it doesn't hurt frames. I don't like particles, right? Even though CPU impact is low, I don't like excess stuff on my screen. I just want as little extraneous information, visual information as possible, so it's easier to see what I need to see. Likewise with blood decal, right? Even though there's no impact. Scatter density, it's just more junk off the screen. Light shadows, that's a CPU beast. Get out of here. Sun shadows, get out of here. Volumetric fog, get out of here. Okay, auto exposure speed is a new setting. Where does this come up? If you have a very low auto exposure speed, and you could, let's say, you go in and out of the portal at the end of Convocation of Decay or at the end of a weave, there's the light setting changes from dark to light, dark to light. And if your exposure speed is low, it'll be extremely disorienting. I have this maxed out. Anti-aliasing, it's very efficient these days. FXAA looks good. I like sharpness filter. Not everyone does. SSAO is ugh. Get it out of here. The only reason Bloom is on is because to my eyes, it makes the Assassin Claws pop a little more. It certainly did in V1. I don't know how impactful it is in V2. It's a legacy setting for me. Skin shading, I don't know. I don't know if it really affects anything. I've just had it off for forever. Depth of field, get out of here. I hate depth of field. Motion blur, you gotta be kidding me. Lens flaring, we're not a computer. Like, this is not a lens, right? It's supposed to be your eye. I don't understand the setting either. Get out of here. Distortions, any of this junk, out. Light shafts, up to you. Anyways, you know my philosophy by now. Audio, very important stuff. I actually have Dolby Atmos, and I use that in this game. It's not optimized for it, so I don't know if it has the biggest impact, but I spent the $15 for the lifetime. Up to you. Google it if you're interested. Set as appropriate. And the higher you make this actually has considerable CPU impact. So remember, my visual settings were, if it has CPU impact, get out of here. However, audio is so important in this game, and the sound design is so good. You can locate enemies, right? The difference between left, 15 degrees back of left, 30 degrees back of left, and almost behind you, just off of a single sound cue once you get used to the game, right? Sound is so important that I have quality up there and dynamic range up there. Dynamic range doesn't affect CPU. That's just about your headphones. People think that high dynamic range is better than low. No, it's only good if you have a high quality setup, like headphones that are designed for hi-fi. I'm trying to remember exactly what it does. It's not important here. The bottom line is, if you don't have hi-fi speakers or headphones, don't have the setting on high. Set it on low, and you'll have an easier time noticing low frequencies and high frequencies. The bottom line, again, is if you don't have high quality one, you set this on high, you're going to miss low frequency and high frequency sounds. It's going to get muddled together, or it's not going to play very loud or whatever have you. Just auto's fine here. I have subtitles off. I find them distracted. That's taste. Couple little things. Music. What information do you get from music that you... Okay, so let's think about music. Just like there's visual noise, there's audible noise, right? That people talking constantly, for example, the CPU and such, the Carillion running her mouth constantly, that's audible noise. I'd eliminate that instantly if I had the choice. Actually, it's a good mod idea. But music actually has informational value. It tells you about the stage you're in of an event, and it tells you about a boss spawn. It can tell you about a horde spawn, but there's a trade-off. It's going to drown out other noises. And to me, that trade-off is not worth it. So I have my music completely off. That's up to you. That's up to you. It does give information. I'm not going to talk about keys too much right now. One thing I want you to know is there are high-level players that play with jump and dodge on the same key. I find it essential to separate jump and dodge so you can dodge when you want to and only when you want to. And where this comes up all the time, if you have jump and dodge on the same key, let's say you're going in the air or something. When you go downstairs in this game, there are a series of little drops. They're basically a bunch of little cliffs. And if you go to hit dodge, well, you're at the exact wrong moment going down the stairs and you're in the air, you won't dodge. So you actually in those times like to spam the dodge key. But if you have dodge jump, if you hit it twice, you'll dodge, then instantly cancel the dodge with a jump. And that's not what you meant to do. So there are some gameplay implications to not having dodge and jump on different keys. A thing I don't see people do enough is spam tag all the time. I use tag all the time, and for that same reason, I don't think you should have tag and social wheel on the same key. You should have social wheel on a different key. You shouldn't use the combined key, because you want to spam tag all the time, and if you have them on the same key, you're going to accidentally social wheel all the time, and that's going to destroy you. And I recommend that you learn to bring out the appropriate item without scrolling, but I use Q for melee range. I never use 1, 2. Do I never? I'm sure there's 1 or 2 times I do, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Nothing else matters. There are cheesy things you can do with inspect hero to third person um, for looking, but I've never seen any high level player use that because you have to stop doing other things. Last bit, network. Okay. Set this to 2 megabits per second. I can't imagine anyone has an issue with it. If you have any amount of upload bandwidth, just max this. But if you don't, you want to, I think, set it lower, and also set small network packaging to on. This is supposed to help you if you have a poor upload. And you can turn show numerical latency on, and that means if you hit tab, you can see people's ping. But I need you to understand this, so listen to me. Read the following. This value, the displayed numerical ping, is higher than the base ping you'll see in other games, as it displays the average real latency of networks. In other words, latency is how much time it takes for the information to go, right? Why? Because it's including the added time due to the frame rate of the server and the client. This means if the servers and clients are both running at 30 FPS, you'll see an average increase of around 67 milliseconds of this value compared to your base ping time. That means if you were on LAN, you will see 67 to 75 FPS. If you're at what other games like Counter-Strike would display as 10 ping, 10 milliseconds, you will see 76 milliseconds. Seeing anything in the 80s means you have a godly connection to the other guy, right? But people look at this number and they don't know what it means, and they infer the wrong things. That, oh, we need dedicated servers, and look how bad everyone's ping is in this game. It's like, no, you just don't know what the number means, right? Because like a Battlefield server, they run on 30 FPS forever, right? They run on 30 tick servers, 30 FPS servers. So that adds 30 something real ping, right? Minimum on their end. Plus you have to consider yours. So if you're running at like 144 and they're running at 30, the server's running at 30, this is like 45 or something extra, 40, somewhere in there, right? Extra milliseconds, real milliseconds. Anyways, I babbled about this. When you see 120, it really means you probably have a ping in Counter-Strike or something of probably 80, which is okay. Anyways, enough on that. I think that's it. That's it. So I hope you learned a lot. Again, if I missed something important, I'll put it in the comments below, and I'll favorite comments below that pinpoint something important that I didn't even think about. I hope this is useful to you. Good luck, guys.